This is Evangelist George McTyre of the Word of God Ministry, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to view this clip on the subject of a response to a young man who says that pro-life people should vote Democratic. I'm going to play his clip and split it into segments and answer each of his points individually as we go along. So here is the parts of his clip coming up. Thank you.
For those of you who think that abortion kills people and that its existence is the moral equivalent of genocide, here are some things to consider. Republicans support something called abstinence-only education, which involves either withholding information from or giving distorted and inaccurate information to students. Abstinence-only education has been shown to increase incidence of unplanned pregnancy. Many conservatives also favor restricting access to or even banning birth control even. This would have the effect of drastically increasing the number of unplanned pregnancies and consequently the number of abortions performed.
Okay, his first point is about abstinence-only education and how that somehow or other this translates into a fact where it increases more unplanned pregnancies and so forth, and which then in turn leads to supposedly more abortion. Since we're talking about pro-life thing, according to the title that he has, pro-life Democrats should support the Democratic Party. Pro-life people should support the Democratic Party. Well, let me say this. First of all, abstinence education educates the student to the benefits of remaining or abstaining from sexual activities, and it explains the risks of engaging in sex basically outside of marriage, or having multiple sex partners and stuff, and the risks of that of having sex, which in turn within the sex education classes that are in the public schools now and that were put in the public schools when it first went in, they don't teach you abstinence. They teach you how to protect yourself from these diseases, if they even mention the disease, but they basically are talking about keeping from getting pregnant and the use of condoms and contraceptives and stuff which the schools provide. Well, then you look at it, and quite frankly, using the mentality of most people that would even use common sense, you would have to say this. That since sex education was first put in the public school system as a means to combat the rate of teen pregnancies that occurred back then, since sex education was put in the public schools without the teaching of abstinence and the providing of condoms and other contraceptives, the unplanned pregnancy rates have more than quadrupled. In fact, they more than quadrupled back in the by the early 90s or so. They had more than quadrupled. I don't know where they are now, but they're out of sight, judging from all the young girls I see walking around the streets nowadays carrying babies. So his argument there is basically completely moot. Another thing that you have to realize is this, and that is the fact that if the people are not told about the risks of having sex outside of marriage as God intended for it to be, you're going to have all of these problems. So his argument right there, if you'll notice, he's not mentioning anything about God at all, period. Which means he's dealing with solutions as they appear to be to him, without the influence, if you will, of what God has to say about the situation.
Republicans are shaping our economy into one that increasingly relies on mass consumption, yet works to extract maximum wealth from the consumer base. This year and next year we are experiencing the results of this in the form of a consumer-driven recession, one that is bankrupting much of the middle class and will change the working poor into the unemployed destitute. This regression into a Gilded Age economy may not be what Republicans say they want, but that their policies work toward it is a matter of fact.
Okay, now, one thing I forgot to mention in that first part, which I'm going to add on now, is simply this. As far as I was talking about abstinence, see, when you don't teach the people about the dangers of or the risks involved with sex outside of marriage, then you turn around and provide them with the equipment to, so to speak, what they think is to protect them from something. When you do that, you basically give them the green light to go ahead and delve into something that you essentially trying to tell them. You aren't telling them that they shouldn't do, but what you're saying is you can protect yourself from the consequences of this problem. Well, the thing is, there's always consequences, and as we look around at the exploding rate of VD, AIDS, and everything else going on, we know that our people's sexual activities and things are going out of control. Now, the other thing that I did, and I had to make a note of this, is the fact that he's mentioning now the fact of what the Democrats are trying to do versus what the Republicans are doing. And see, this is a kind of what I don't know about the terminology. I'm going to use bait and switch, but essentially what it is this: the Democrats caused this problem, but as the problem has exploded and so forth, in order to deal with the problem, the Democrats have engaged in, all sorts of other government programs, entitlements, raising taxes on people to help combat this problem. And the Republicans are saying, hey, wait a minute. No, what we need to do is go back to square one and start doing something else, because what you're doing is not working. And this is the one of the main problems that we have today is, see, the Democrats are trying to cover their tails, because see, they know they have screwed up everything. Their legislation and their regulations going all the way back from Jimmy Carter. If you want to know when the downturn to the economy started, all you have to do is go back to the years 1976 to 1980, when the Democrats had free reign to do whatever they wanted to do in Washington, pass all the laws, make all the regulations they wanted to, and the Democrats could not stop them no way, shape, form, or fashion. And those regulations that they passed back then are the cause of over 10 million jobs that were permanently eliminated. Other jobs were cut back, wages were cut, and the regulations are still in effect today, because every time you look around with the new cars and things that are coming out, the manufacturers are talking about they have to meet new fuel standards and this, that, and other. All of that stuff happened back during the Jimmy Carter administration. But yet and still, the switch is when the Democrats try to turn it around and essentially blame the Republicans for it. So once again, that's another thing that this young man needs to research.
Now, the reason I bring this up is because in 1998, 21.3% of abortions were undertaken because the mother could not afford to raise a child. Now, Democrats may not be perfect, but at least most of them support policies that would create more and better paying jobs for poor people. as well as affordable health care and other forms of support for single mothers. A consequence of implementing these policies would be that the number of hardship-motivated abortions would fall. Republican policies, on the other hand, would act as a multiplier on this figure by pushing our economy further out of balance and driving up the number of poor people. What it comes down to, I guess, is that we live in a society that does not account for childbirth outside of a rigid set of social norms. A woman is expected to be of a certain age, in a long-term relationship, and financially secure enough to raise a child. And outside of these conditions, the prospect of becoming a mother ranges from highly inconvenient to downright impossible. Conservatives love these kinds of restrictions placed on the human condition, and would make them even more rigid if they could, such that even in the unlikely event that Roe v. Wade is overturned, abortion rates couldn't possibly fall, short of strapping down pregnant women for 9 months and physically preventing them from interfering with their natural human spawning processes. So in light of these facts, I guess my question to people who are pro-life is, why the hell would you vote Republican?
In order to save time and try to keep this in one clip, I'm going to read part of something that I was saying in response to this last segment that the young man brought up. Once again, if it wasn't for the introduction of sex education into the classrooms of our schools without any moral or religious counterpoints, you basically would not have had the mess that you have now. But because it is as it is, it's basically a disaster that has been in the brewing. The economy is bad once again, as I said, because of the policies of the Democratic Party with their tax and spend and introducing all sorts of regulations and things that basically discourage job growth and everything else. All of this dealing back to Jimmy Carter and when the Democrats had control. And basically this notion, I mean, the way things are going is by design of the Democratic Party. You see, because one thing that you got to look at, the more people that are out of work, the more people that need government assistance, makes it better for the Democrats to stay in office. By design, they implement policies to destroy jobs, make people dependent on government, and therefore they discourage any private entrepreneurship or small business. You can go look at trying to start a business, all the red tape you got to go through, the amount of money you got to pay. A lot of out of every 100 businesses that try to start up, over 80 of them fail because of the red tape, the regulations, and all that other stuff. That's just the way the Democrats want it. That's less competition for their government programs that they want to set up. So you have that, and every time you look around when there's a problem, the first thing you hear them say is, we're going to create these government programs. Well, if you're going to create a government program, that means you got to have people working those programs, and you got to have funds for them. Where does that come from? Higher taxes and higher wages. Now, as far as the abortion, I mean, the thing about the pro-life and abortion things are concerned, the Democrats put us in this position, and rather than going back and correcting the problem, this young man wants us to continue in the problem. Well, as I mentioned earlier, he did not mention anything about God or what God has to say about it. Do you think when things go bad, God changes his rules and tries to update his rules to go along with the foolishness that's going on in this nation? I don't think so. Well, that's all I'm going to say.